us. And just to let you know, turn off your cell phones. And afterwards, I think most of you know, if you can join us at our home in Shaker Heights, we're having a little get-together, so please join us afterwards. So welcome, friends and family. First of all, on behalf of my family, I'd like to thank all of you who have been providing us with such extraordinary support over these past few weeks. As many of you know, Jen and I lost our brothers when we were young. And the inner circle of our friends became to us brothers and sisters, uncles and aunts. In the best of times, it's easy to embrace a warm and meaningful relationship. But when you're tested as a family, it's certainly when your closest friends, who become your brothers and sisters, demonstrate the true meaning of selflessness, devotion, and experienced it in ways that are just pure love. And we've witnessed this, and it's drawn us all together in a greater appreciation for how blessed we are in all of you who have chosen to thoroughly embrace us in this wondrous event that has brought us here together today. And I say wondrous because we're here to celebrate the spirit of an amazing person. My mom, Rachel Thrope, was the best mom. Most Jewish mothers see their sons in a particular light of being incapable of doing anything that's wrong. And when their sons fall off the mark, they quickly forget that we strayed. However, there are those moments, possibly when they're friends or when they're with strangers, when they do admit that their child is not as perfect as they hoped they could be. This is where my mom diverges from all other moms. In her mind, I was still and am quite perfect. I have done no wrong and I'm incapable of doing wrong. And as her son, I'd never argue this point with her. Unconditional love. We've heard this phrase before, but my mom just bestowed this upon us. I felt it at a very young age. I remember getting up at night when something was bothering me or I felt ill, and I'd go into my parents' bedroom, walk over to my mother's side, not my dad's side, my mother's side of the bed, and if she was just waiting for me. I didn't wake her. She just knew I was in need and comforted me in whatever I needed. And this continued throughout my life. I wasn't the easiest child to raise. Imagine that. And when I reflected this to my mom, she wouldn't remember any of those things and always thought I was perfect. So this gift I had my entire life of being loved unconditionally, quite purely, is one that now I realize is something I cannot have replaced. It cannot be sought after by some other person or in some other means, since it cannot live up to this magnificent relationship. In reflecting on this, I was advised by one of my closest friends that I can, however, learn from this and bestow it upon my own children. But am I worthy or capable of passing this along? It was so seamless, so seemingly effortless, so part of my mom's DNA that I know I may not be able to live up to it. But I can try, and I can be better, and I can try to understand this love and embrace another gift that I'd share with my life and partner, my love of my life, Jan. And that is to my children, Michael and Kevin. And I promise I'll try to carry on with this wondrous concept and be as accepting, as loving, as forgiving, and as someone who can be approached without prejudging. This is what my mom did, and I hope I can carry on. My mom was born in 1926. She grew up in the Bronx during the Great Depression. She was graduating high school during World War II. Her parents and family in the United States lost many of their loved ones in the Holocaust, and these events shaped her life. Her father, Hyman Civic, was a master tailor, actually making clothes for customers as well as making my mom's dresses and clothing. It's a lost art and something clearly not heard of today. Her mom, Sadie, was a sweet person. She was an only child and never had her own bedroom. Her parents had a one-bedroom apartment in the Bronx, and she slept on the living room couch growing up all the way until she met my dad, where she was wed to him at the ripe age of 27, certainly old for those times. When you see pictures of my mom at this time, she was gorgeous, and my dad certainly hit the jackpot. Going to college was not what girls did, and coming from her background in particular. Instead, her parents sent her to learn stenography and typing so she could earn a living as a secretary. My mom was an amazing secretary, being able to type on manual typewriters at the speed that most typists achieve with electric typewriters and eventually word processors. And how do I know this? Because my mom would type out most of my papers for me, especially when I was falling behind on any assignment, which I was too lazy to work on until the last moment. And it was magic, watching and listening to the clackety-clack and little bell ring for each line, and then the zip sound as the carriage would return, the poppity-pop of the ribbon going up and down as the little letter hammers pounded the paper against the rubber roller. If you're 60 or older, you know what I'm talking about. If you're 60 or younger, you've seen this in the movies. My mom was not keen on having children, and honestly never really liked babies or children at all. But once I and my brother Ronald were born, she became a great mom, where nothing was too good for her kids. She did everything for us to a fault. To this day, Jen, you'll love this, I don't clean or make the beds because I just assume the home did it for you. Magically, I'd come home after school and it was spotless. The bed was made, clothing cleaned, folded, put away, and wondrous smells of delicious food and baked goods filled our senses. She wanted us to excel, and in doing so, she taught herself in so many ways. If there was a topic that we needed to learn about, my mom would use the library, similar to the way we take advantage of Google today, exhaustively talking to knowledgeable librarians. Now, again, if you're 60-year-old, you remember librarians really were librarians and reference people at that time. And finding background material for us in our assignments. My mom also was a voracious reader, making suggestions and sharing her thoughts with us. Ken, you'll appreciate this. She was the most proactive consumer advocate, predating Ralph Nader. Because if there was a product or service that didn't live up to what was promised to deliver, my mom would seek out the store supervisor and drive it up the totem pole of managers until she got satisfaction. Initially, this was quite embarrassing for me, as I would have to witness her dress down people for not living up to the end of the consumer bargain. As time went on, I learned not only to appreciate it, but incorporate it within my own manner of conducting life. My mom was not the best athlete, but she persevered and learned to play golf, going out to play with Dad. In fact, when she was 70, she and I were playing with two young strapping guys that were driving the ball far and wild. When we'd all reached the green, and you guys remember this, my mom was on in 3 or 4, always going straight down the fairway. These guys were awed by this and couldn't believe she was that old. 70. It doesn't seem that old now, does it? Most of you know of the tragedy of the loss of my brother, who was diagnosed with brain tumor at the age of 12. My mom became Ronald's best friend, and they would do everything together, go out together, play golf together. And they talked endlessly about all sorts of topics. His last 4 years of life were bestowed with wonderment and awe. My mom gave selflessly in ways that were unimaginable. And when Ronald left us, we, that is my dad, mom, and I, were now unbalanced, as there were now 3 of us, not even the family unit that we really had been. And a few years later, a miracle occurred, and our family unit was mended when Jan joined us. And she healed us. She brought life back into our family that we didn't know was missing, and we actually didn't know was broken. My parents loved Jan from the moment they met her. My mom yielded a tiny bit of that unconditional love. It became over time another mom, a friend to my wife, a nana to our children, and someone we totally depended on in helping us rear our family. My mom was so happy for me and wanted for me the relationship I had and still have with Jan, Michael, and Kevin. Love, support, friendship, a partnership for life. She loved Jan and my children fiercely. Within 8 hours of Michael's birth, my parents walked into the hospital room, leaving their Florida home, going right to the airport, and jumping into our lives as the most engaged grandparents a family could wish for. Within 9 months, my mom was putting together a new home in Cleveland as they left New York City and gradually made Cleveland their true home. Wednesday nights were dinner at Mom's, as my dad was still working and Jan worked that evening. With children in tow, I would collapse onto the couch, fall asleep, and then was awakened into a fabulous home-cooked meal while my mom entertained the kids. Saturday nights, Jan and I were date night, as the kids would be dropped off at Nana and Papa's home, and we came by Sunday morning to pick them up. My kids got to witness and feel the love my mom and dad selflessly gave to them, as I had when I grew up. Chapter stories, which were an endless compilation of wondrous short stories my mom would invent and regale our kids with, were always in demand. As time went on, my mom and I started a tradition of having lunch together every Saturday, going to our favorite Chinese restaurant and talking about the topics of the week. Politics and kids were always something we enjoyed talking about. We sometimes talked about my father. I had this amazing relationship with this person who I took for granted because this is what she allowed me to do. And it seemed that it would never end. My mom was a great dancer. And recently, as she would come over for our traditional Sunday night dinner, we began listening to the music of the 40s. My mom got herself up from her walker, pushed it aside as if given a shot of adrenaline, and began showing off her rumba steps as we watched slack-jawed in amazement. She had style, she was opinionated, and she was fiercely protective of her brood. 3 years ago, a new member of our family was brought in by our son Michael. My mom, Nana, had to open her heart up and embrace this person. And Nana loved our newest member, Maggie, and welcomed her into this elite club. Our circle of life continues. Our relationships evolve. Our spirits are lifted by all of you here today. My mom left her mark on our life, and it will always be remembered, always loved. Hi, Mom. How you doing? Okay, Jeff, how are you? And we would chat, this being a daily ritual. Okay, I love you, Mom. Hope you have a great day. Speak with you later. I love you too, honey. Have a great day. Speak with you soon. How can this daily banter in our lives end? It can't be replaced, but it can certainly be honored. I love you, Mom, and always will. You take care. Top that. Let me have one of those.
Okay, so I am not going to top that. Whew. I'm not as prepared. She came into this world with the name of Ruth, and that's the name she had when I met her. I met her when Jeff called her, his mom and dad, and said, "I'd like to come and visit you. I want to tell you something." And he went down to Florida to tell them that he had asked a goy, a Christian, to marry. And I told Jeff I wouldn't accept his proposal until I knew his parents accepted me. And so in that phone call, that first phone call, they accepted me. So I knew Ruth in the early days over the phone because she lived in New York with Papa, and we lived in Cleveland. And we developed a relationship as best one can over the phone, and she'd come to visit, and it would always be stressful for me because I'm a goy. And what if I don't know how to do the Jewish things? And what if I don't do it right? And what if the person who means most to me in my world were to be taken from me because I wasn't accepted? So there was this yardstick I carried early on in our marriage. Do I measure up? Am I enough for this wonderful man? And I would hear of Nana's list. Anyone who knows Nana knows she has a list. The list is for people who have done her wrong, who have slighted her in some way or somehow just not, lived up. And all I could think of is, one day I'm going to be on that list. So Ruth and I had a distant relationship until the family received another phone call. And that phone call was, Michael's born. No, there's a story before that. A story before that. The phone call was, Mom and Dad, we lost the baby. So our first child died, and I had a miscarriage. And the person who had the healing words for me was Ruth, because she too had carried a child to full term and lost it. And only her could know the depth of our disappointment and loss. And she was the one that said, all right, take a little while to grieve, take a little while to heal, and then get back in that saddle. And so she actually even gave us a weekend away to help us get back in the saddle. Then the next phone call, it was to Florida. Michael was born, and that afternoon, Nana and Papa arrived to welcome Michael into this world. And that was the day she turned to Nana. And that was the day that she went from a foreign person who I worried about to a grandmother that I cherished. Because she was there always. Unconceivable, actually, how present she was for every aspect of our life. And for me, in a way that wasn't by sharing advice, but by showing the way. So she remained Nana throughout the time with Michael and Kevin, and always being present. And later in life, Nana changed her name. She became Rachel when Nana and Papa moved into assisted living. She figured it was a clean break. It was a time that she could just unleash all of the things that were expected of Ruth. Ruth never got to go to college. Ruth never had a bed. Ruth never got to sell her books. And suddenly, now Ruth was Rachel. And Rachel was a writer. Rachel was a painter. Rachel was outspoken. Rachel stood for things. Rachel was kind. And Rachel was forgiving. So during that time that she was Rachel, she and I formed our third phase of our relationship. We had a tough time one day, and I thought for sure I was on the list. The following day, I came to her and I said, "Was I on the list yesterday? And if I was hired by you, would I have been fired yesterday?" And she said, "Yes, but I'm not going to do that." She put her arms around me. She said, "I'm Rachel." And in that time, I knew I was forever in that unconditional acceptance. And during that time, she gave me the opportunity in her latter phases when she needed us in ways that she had never needed us before. She gave me an opportunity to love her in ways I never could have before. I loved her through touch, and I was able to cradle her head in my arms, kiss her face in a tenderness that we had never exchanged, hold her, cry with her. And she taught me that loving that's received is wonderful, but when someone lets you love them is when you feel the full depth of that love. And so she leaves us at the pinnacle of my heart being filled by her and knowing how fulfilling it was to love her. So I share with you a poem because in the final days, or actually in the final years, she let me scribe for her dreams, her stories. And this is her final one. And she instructed me to read this at this service. And it is, "I'm a poet, and everyone knows it. So don't be sad, be glad. I'm going to have a little rest, which for now is the best." Thanks.
Oh, I'm even less prepared. So I think we should all just maybe take a minute and of silence, reflection, just to think about why we're all here. It's because of not this box, but this person. It's a celebration. This most powerful woman that is still a part of me, because it's real. We are together still. And same with my father, my brother. We have to carry along the legacy. She had the most calming. Well, let's first take the minute to all reflect. I'm sorry. My Nana always had a way to calm me down. When she was in the room, no one could fight or yell, and that's difficult in our family, So there was this one night I remember, as my mom was saying, they were out, and then they would drop us off at our, grandparents' house, Nana and Papa, and it was late at night, and I woke up to get like a snack, and I opened up the refrigerator. And as a Jewish refrigerator has, it has red horseradish. And the can fell onto my toe. And I started crying. I couldn't stop crying. I cried some more. And my grandpa came in, Papa, and he said, and he couldn't calm me down, and I couldn't stop crying. He said, "Stop crying!" And my And so my Nana came in, and, she held my hand. I'll never forget how soft her skin is, even to her dying day. I remember going in there, kissing her on the forehead, and her skin was still soft. I would tell my friends, my Nana's, passing away, and she said, yeah, I remember my Nana, she had leather skin. I said, not mine. She had soft, beautiful skin, and she would hold my hand. And no matter what, I got in trouble a lot when I was a kid. And no matter what I did, she would be there, and she would hold my hand. And I wasn't in trouble anymore. I was safe. I was calm. She just had that way about her. She was an artist. She could paint. She could write. And I think that reflected on me a lot. There's a mosaic out there I made for her, for one of her birthdays. And I didn't know what to do. And I always, me and my girlfriend always decide to make things. And I think, it's something to make something for yourself, for other people to see, but to make something for somebody is another thing. And I was always had the most inspiration when I would make something for my Nana. I think it always came out the best. She worked, I might be getting this wrong, but there was I believe she worked at a hospital or something like that with a group, and they all got this gray fabric because they were making these elephants for the people in the hospital. And they were this gray, and they'd sew them together, and they looked like an elephant. And my Nana always thought she was an eccentric person. I think that's where I get my eccentricity. And she decided, gray is boring. Everyone's seen an elephant. That's not what an elephant looks like. It's this big, great, awesome animal. But this is just a little gray piece of felt. So what she did is she went out and she got this pink felt, this pink fabric, and she sewed this pink elephant. And the lady that was the curator of all of it said, "What are you doing? This is a pink. Elephants aren't pink, And so she said, she never cared what other people thought because she knew she was right. That's something that I carry along myself, It's not to be and it's not saying that you're right, but not being afraid to be wrong, and not saying that I'm wrong, but how do I know? How will I know if I'm wrong if I don't try first? And I think that's what she did, and she made these elephants, these pink elephants. There's no such thing as a pink elephant, but everybody loved the pink elephant. It was the biggest thing. That was what she did. She thought outside the box. It's the only way you can change something is if you do something different. I got a few things from my Nana. Some of it are paintings of hers. A beautiful painting. My favorite one. It was just, pink is, very vibrant colors, but my favorite, and she always made these wonderful paintings of all these different colors and colorful things, but my favorite one she made was this all gray painting of it was of a rainy day with a stranger holding an umbrella, and she did its way about it. It was a story. She always could tell stories, and even through the painting she could tell a story, and this was the one I took with me because it's a painting of a stranger outside of a house holding an umbrella, and she said, it was kind of scary a little bit. She goes, is the stranger, they live at the house, or are they going to the house? I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's interesting. But another thing I got was a very sweet thing she told me is that it is a painting of a child being rocked by her mother, and underneath the cradle is a white goat, and the story behind that is it is a lullaby that her father would sing to her every night before she went to bed. It's in Yiddish. I don't speak Yiddish, but unfortunately, but I will do my own rendition of Raisins and Almonds after I can catch my breath. I changed the words around a little bit. This isn't easy, huh? In a temple, in a chamber, sits a daughter of Zion, all alone. She rocks her little Nana and sings her to sleep with a lullaby. Alleluia, lilu, lilu, alleluia, lilu, lilu. Under Nana's cradle stands a snow-white goat. The goat has gone to trade. This'll be your calling, raisins and almonds. Sleep, little Nana, sleep. Sleep, little Nana, sleep. And this lullaby, my child, there are prophecies that you will be traveling around the world. You will be a merchant of all types of grains, and this you'll also earn lots of money. Alleluia, lilu, lilu, alleluia, lilu, lilu. When you become rich, little Nana, remember this lullaby. Raisins and almonds, this will be your calling. Sleep, little Nana, sleep. Sleep, little Nana, sleep. Thank you.
Thank you all again for joining us. It's just wonderful. We so appreciate the love that you've all given to us. Please take some time if you want and see some of the things in the history of our family. And then again, come on over and we'll have some coffee and a little schmear and enjoy things. Thank you again.